Gayaki, it's not like, it's not, and when you say Gayaki in either style, we're not talking about sounding like a vocalist, we're talking about sounding like a voice. I can tell you vocalists sometimes don't sound like a voice. Okay, let's make that very subtle but important differentiation here. So the problem here is it was not an attempt to just aesthetically recreate, which I think a lot of instrumentals in the South did. Yes. Mali did it, Rajaratnam Pillai did it, everybody did it. But it was about trying to get to linguistics, trying to get to the whole meaning of the word, which after a point becomes very difficult, unless you're playing something people already know, lyrically. So that has limited what I'm talking about, the aesthetic development. That is the difference I think that there is.
Just one question, that what were the vocalists in the Carnatic context singing prior to the...
Oh, thank you, I'm glad you asked me that. It's very interesting. From what information we have, they sang probably, I think the only composition which I think everybody who knows music pretty much has heard now is Mata Pi Ganapati Bajai. That was the composition that they started. There's actually a sampling of a whole concept by Mahavadinajir which is given by the great scholar Uve Swaminathan. So apparently Vatapi was very famous. And then they would sing an alap. That's it. Sing an alap and sing Tanam Kure. And maybe one single line composition, a pallavi. But interestingly from my research, they always talked about alap and a pallavi. Now whether Tanam was always sung, whether it was optional, is something we really don't know. I think the Tanam is a very interesting story by itself because I do think that it's influenced by Drupad. That's my research tells me that I think it's actually picked up a lot from Drupad because we had musicians traveling to Tanjavur and there is a very interesting story about it. But they pretty much sang, it was pretty much improvisation. So they took a line and then improvised. And they probably sang a padam in the end or a javadi sometimes. See, again there's another layer to this that we can't miss out, is the fact that the modern narrative of Carnatic music, removed from its aesthetic construction, not just sociological but aesthetic construction, the narrative that the Devidasi gave the music and the narrative that the Nagaswara Vidwan gave, it was the music has unfortunately cleansed itself of two very important aesthetic narratives, and they came from very different schools of aesthetics. The mainstream Brahmin musician took the ideas from the Devidasi and the Nagaswara Vidwan, in a way appropriated it, if I may say so, and brought into his sense of mainstreaming. But where did the Devidasi go? So the padam became something that was sung in the later part of the concert. It is not the important part of the concert.
As an add-on.
Because, to be very honest, musicians found the lyrics very inconvenient. They found eroticism problematic to the idea of purity. They found the Devadasi herself problematic to the idea of purity, of the whole idea. The Nagaswara Vidwan was trapped in the temple, and he even till today is trying to get back in sabbatical.
May I put in a bit of mine in this? And Aneesh, I would like you to respond to that. Krishna, of course, as you know, if you read his book, he does talk about the elephant in the room. That is the caste and the social location.
You need to keep the mic.
The caste and the social location of the performer, the singer. Don't you think a similar process has happened in the past in Hindustani music? A kind of a gentrification in post-independence era when the middle classes took up music. First they started learning, then some of them graduated to become performers, and this process is quite visible in Maharashtra in particular, the belt that you study. Do you think something is lost in the process and there is a kind of an erasure of a certain part of our musical heritage in this? Because modernization, as we have discussed, was not just modernization. With nationalism and this kind of modernity also came some elements which were quite retrograde in the political sense. So they did disenfranchise a certain class of performers. It has happened in the north, from Mudra and the Kawai tradition to everybody. But they also banned or almost banished certain musical practices. How do you look at this scenario, specifically in the context of North?
Well, to begin with, just like to refer to the song text. Uh, in the Hindustani system, uh, as you have your padams and jawlis, here we have tumri and allied forms. But of course, within Khayal also, and even in Drupad, you have erotic songs. And they continue. Despite the whole process of trying to sanitize, it was not really a successful attempt. And in fact, I'd say much is written about that, but without going to the actual song text and also the performance reality today. We still continue to sing those compositions. One of the reasons is, of course, because song text never really played an important role in the literal meaning. Very true, you know. So very often it was just a sonic element of the song text that was played upon by the musician. However, what Asad refers to with regard to the Tabayat tradition, definitely Tumri singing and the practitioners of that form who were focusing on that form were looked down upon, but not necessarily only by the middle class gentry. Even within the musicians, even within the hereditary musicians, there was that care. Yes, and very often the Tabayats who were disciples of Ustads had to pay money. The other disciples had to serve the Ustad. So there was a clear-cut commercial transaction there. So Tumri was definitely second grade, and the Tumri singer was also. Although at times, very often she was the patron of the Ustad. Whether the Ustad was her teacher or her accompanist or whatever, you know, or they used to have special jalsas to include visiting musicians so that they can establish their credentials in the city. Having said that, we do, you know, I think it's somewhere related to also All India Radio, because we evolved this term light music and semi-classical. And if you see the Controller of Broadcasting's report, Lionel Fielden in 1936, I think, so he mentions light music, and these are, light music is a term which has come from Western music actually, and it's almost like Tumri is non-serious music, and it's not difficult.
Yeah, that's a more commentary on the practitioner of the Tumri rather than Tumri itself, right?
Yes, absolutely. And so the Khayal singer thinks that I don't really need to have talim to sing Tumri. You know, I can sing it because I know the rag. Okay, and in fact I know more rags, so I can just weave my way through the Tumri and just have it as an add-on. Yeah, but Tumri, the very fact that, I mean, every form has its own theory. Whether the practitioner chooses to articulate it in so many words, that's different, but his practice is anyway articulating it. And so the way you move from one rag to the other is also, there has to be some logic. There has to be an aesthetic to it, and you can't do it without talim. So I think we have definitely lost out on that tradition. There are very few trained Tumri singers, I also feel that in the past, 19th century and early 20th century also, and this is all anecdotal reference of course, musicians were part of the syncretic and composite culture, and also music making was not happening in a vacuum. So poets, musicians, painters, etc., you know, whether it was in the courts, royal courts, or even outside those, whether it was in salons, they were meeting each other, exchanging ideas. In some ways we have gone deep and specialized in certain forms, but we have lost out on this dialogue that is so enriching to the form itself as well as to the practitioners.